I've been hearing some talk about the fragrances from this Belgian designer house. Let's see what this is all about. Hello, welcome back to Seldomly Off, and I'm Daniel. Today we're talking fragrances, and this is Fragrance Speed Dating with Dries Van Noten. In this video format, I go through a mountain of samples and discovery sets to learn more about the language of perfumery in general, to learn more about fragrance genres, fragrance brands, and even single fragrances. This is super fun, it's very informative. I love doing it because I learn and discover so much, and also you guys seem to be appreciating it. This one here will be a little bit of a different house because it is a designer brand. I don't usually cover designer brands, but this one here really spiked my interest. First and foremost, a special thank you to my buddy Stefano for initially sourcing this discovery set and then gracefully passing it on to me for sampling. Thank you, it's very much appreciated. I love testing new stuff. Anyway, about the brand, Dries Van Noten, I've never really heard about it, given the fact that I am a fashion illiterate. I really don't care. I hate shopping. I never got into it. Feel free to blast me in the comments down below. I kind of deserve it. I've never heard about this brand until very recently on YouTube. And one of the channels that I watch occasionally, which is Cubano, he started talking about a couple fragrances from this brand, hyping them up very much. He said that they were basically these undiscovered gems. As I just said, until very recently, I had no idea that this brand even existed. This was completely under the radar for me. And it's probably due to the fact that I am living in the mountains of Switzerland, but I have no memory of even seeing this on the street. Come to think about it, I've never even seen this in Milan or Rome. Maybe I'm just not attuned to fashion in that way. Anyway, upon receiving this discovery set, I looked up the brand, I looked at the website, and it's actually kind of cool. It has this minimalistic aesthetic. It's Belgian, it has this northern country sort of vibe. It's interesting, and I actually really like the fragrance bottles. They're absolutely beautiful. They feature this split design, which makes them incredibly unique. I think they look absolutely amazing. Basically, the bottom half of the fragrance bottle is either decorated or features some sort of material, and the top is glass, which is colored to match. Everything looks, again, minimal, simple, but really cool. I really like the aesthetic, and even if you go on the website in the fragrance section, everything is photographed and presented beautifully. And looking at the notes, looking at the names of these fragrances, they actually look kind of interesting. I don't think that they're too niche in concept, but I find them intriguing, and they definitely have sparked my curiosity. Some of the names specifically are very interesting. Anyway, I think that this is more along the lines of some private lines from Dior or Chanel. They come across as ingredient forward. They feel or they present in a very high quality. The discovery set itself is absolutely beautiful. It feels extremely high quality. This is very high quality cardboard. Inside we have the fragrances, and inside also there's this booklet showcasing the fragrances with the decorations. And let me show you what I mean by the split design. And by the way, this set is actually pretty substantial. It features 10 fragrances, which I'm going to be sampling all in today's episode. It includes Jardin de l'Orangerie, which is orange blossom and sandalwood. It includes Neon Garden, which is mint and iris, very interesting. Then we have Rosa Carnivora, which is rose and vetiver. Raving Rose, which is pepper and rose. Cannabis Patchouli, which is cannabis and patchouli. Then we have Santal Greenery, which is fig and sandalwood. Voodoo Chile, which is rosemary and patchouli. Rock the Myrrh, which is myrrh and smoked wood. Fleur du Mal, which is osmanthus and suede. And lastly, we have Soie Malaquais, which is chestnut and silk. Again, I really like the bottle designs. This split stuff is beautiful. And this is the kind of stuff that I expect from a designer. This is the kind of attention to detail. This is the kind of general appearance. I have not seen these bottles in person, so I don't know if they live up to the quality standards of the price, because these are actually pretty pricey. At a glance, I seem to understand that these bottles are 100 ml, retailing for over $300 a pop. Again, not necessarily for the faint of heart, but it's pretty much in line with the other designer private lines. So I guess it's not too surprising. Anyway, let's get right into it because I am very excited. But before we get into the actual sampling, let me just very quickly remind you how this format works. I'll be spraying these fragrances on paper to really simulate the idea of walking into a shop to smell these for the first time. When you do so, you're usually handed tester strips and you're tasked with the difficult choice of evaluating a fragrance based on your first impressions, based on the opening. So I'll be doing just that. I'll be keeping it very much speed dating style. I'll just talk about what I get immediately. I've never tested these fragrances, so I have no expectations, no preconceptions. Also, after smelling each fragrance and briefly talking about it, I'll be assigning it a score at 0 to 10 to really help me decide which is the one that I like the most. Speaking of, at the end of the sampling session, I'll be spraying the fragrance that I like the most on skin, because sometimes fragrances really change between paper and skin. Some brands really rely on that. This one here, being a designer, I'm not necessarily expecting much of a change though. Anyway, let's get right into it. I know that I'm repeating myself when I say that I really like the presentation of this discovery set and of the brand in general, but this silly little detail had me chuckle in appreciation. I love the fact that the fragrances are laid out exactly as they're presented on this info sheet on this little brochure. I like attention to detail like this. Other cool details here are that each little vial here, when you take it out, it leaves the split color of the fragrance. And you can really reference it in the booklet here. Super, super cool. And there are cool little details that each sample vial features the name of the fragrance, obviously, but it also features the 2 notes which are related to that fragrance. It's attention to detail like this. Once again, it feels like Dries Van Noten is really aiding the sampling process, trying to facilitate it. Unfortunately, the cool stuff ends here. The atomizers are really, really bad. These are some of the worst. These are the stuff that I complain about all the time. These are the atomizers that brands like Zerjo use that barely spray. I'm hoping that this one here sprays. I'm hoping that I'm not going to be upset. Anyway, the first fragrance that I'm going to be sampling is called Jardin de l'Orangerie. And this one here is actually featuring, as it says here, orange blossom and sandalwood. Let's see what this is all about. Let's give it 2 good sprays. Yeah, off the bat, no surprises, a ton of orange blossom. Very, very beautiful though. Extremely clean, extremely powerful. It has a lot of density, a lot of body. Wow. It has this really, really apparent creaminess, which is probably due to the sandalwood, but it's coming across as foamy, almost like tonic. Like some sort of a body cream. But you can really pick up on the texture. It's very, very thick. It's like very dense, soapy foam. This is really nice. It has this, again, it has this density, it has this presence. Super beautiful. Wow. I feel that this, dare I say, it comes across as a little bit more feminine. It's absolutely beautiful, and I would definitely wear it, but it's pretty much a pure white floral scent. There's nothing really breaking it up. There's no citruses, there's no edginess, there's no earthiness, there's no vetiver-like, there's nothing in there like that. This is like a pure white floral with a sandalwood enhancing that furriness, that velvetiness, that silkiness, making the whole composition incredibly creamy. Again, beautiful. It's radiant, it's powerful. Sometimes white florals, like orange blossom, kind of smell like a dryer sheet, but this is very, very intense. I was about to say that it smells like soap, like a very luxurious soap, but soap is never this intense. This smells more like a body lotion, and again, body lotions are not necessarily very scented, but this is so creamy. It's impossible to escape that creamy texture that a body lotion carries. Beautiful, wow. Extremely, extremely well done. I would have to give this a very, very solid start. Probably something along the lines of a 7.5 out of 10. I'm very, very impressed. It's absolutely gorgeous, and it's radiant, and it's potent, and yeah, this, very, very interesting. I would wear this out of curiosity because I feel that this on skin would even become more creamy, more saturated, more vivid, beautiful. Yeah, 7.5 out of 10, great, great start. Second fragrance is Neon Garden. This one here is the mint and iris one. This one sounds really, really cool. Let's give it 2 sprays and see what this is all about. More like 2.5, 3, but it doesn't matter. Wow. Super unusual. I was not expecting this whatsoever. This is... Again, this is very, very potent, very bodied. It feels, it's like the other one. It doesn't feel like it has a ton of depth, but it has such a vivid, such a saturated image up front. So this one here comes across as not sweet at all. I was kind of expecting some sort of a gourmand mint, maybe like a creamy mint, but no. This is very, very green, very sharp mint, which is very herbal. And the iris is actually adding, again, it's not necessarily adding creaminess. It's not like orris butter or anything like that. It's adding earthiness. Earthiness and something bitter in the back. Again, it's probably a combination of this herbaceous greenery and this, how do I describe this? It's like damp. It's damp and earthy. This is super interesting. I've never smelled anything exactly like it. And this 2-note thing that they write on the little vial is very, very cool because you can definitely pick up on those 2 notes. And I feel that it's extremely well documented or replicated, the idea of those 2 notes actually. Again, for whatever reason, I'm not necessarily getting a ton of depth. I don't think that these would evolve or transition that much. They feel fairly simple, but they're insanely vivid and insanely saturated. It feels like someone is just pouring out a bucket of very, very bright paint. It comes at you all at once. Very, very cool. I really like this scent. I would have to give this another solid 7.5 out of 10, probably even an 8, just because I like the scent profile a little bit more. Combination is very, very interesting. Wow, cool. I like the presentation. I like how bodied these are. These are very, very exciting, yet simple. Interesting. Yeah, 7.5 out of 10, another banger. All right, on to fragrance number 3. This one here is Rosa Carnivora. So this is rose and vetiver. Super curious about this. It might be a more masculine take on rose. Let's see. Yeah, these sprayers are not that great, but at least they're not failing me. I can immediately pick up the punchy, punchy rose. Again, it comes at you as a punch in the face. Not necessarily abrasive. These are actually very, very smooth, but they're so saturated and vivid. Wow. Very, very fun sampling session. I'm glad I have this set. Yeah, so there's a ton of rose in here. It's your typical fresh red rose, a little bit dewy, a little bit fruity. But again, it's so insanely saturated. I'm starting to pick up on this smoky, ashy bitterness, which is a little bit taming this rose note, which is so insanely bright, making it less obvious and a little bit more palatable. It is kind of reminding me of Matières Premières Radical Rose, but that one there had much more sweetness in there. That one there felt kind of like going into Portrait of a Lady territory. This one here feels more dry. Again, it's incredible how the vetiver or whatever is giving this bitterness is really offsetting the fruitiness of the rose. And it's making this very modern, actually. I have no idea why, but when smelling this, I'm picturing the word Japanese. I'm thinking about Japan. I'm thinking about paper. I'm thinking about those paper walls or dividers. It's incredibly dry. It's paper-like. It's brittle almost. Very, very modern. I'm super impressed. This is really, really cool. And it's getting better and better. It's becoming more and more edgy. And it's not modern in a Maison Crivelli way whatsoever. This is not clinical. This is very tactile. It's very organic modern. I know I said Japanese, but I'm also getting a little bit of Northern Europe in here. I'm getting this minimalist, pragmatist approach, which is very, very particular. Again, it's modern, it's clean, but it's not clinical. It's not laboratory whatsoever. Again, it's not like Maison Crivelli. This has a texture, it has a grit, it has something organic in here. It's absolutely beautiful though, absolutely beautiful. I'm so impressed. This is probably my favorite so far. This is getting like better and better as it goes. It's drying up, it's becoming more and more brittle. Beautiful. Beautiful, and once again, I'm very much impressed with Dries Van Noten so far. These are insanely saturated, very, very direct. These are a joy to sample, they're very easy to understand. Easy to understand, easy to grasp, they're not confused whatsoever. They might be a little bit simple, but they're extremely well made and they have so much body, so much presence. And compared to something like Louis Vuitton, which have this synthetic aura to them. These feel very, very rich. I like this. I have to give this a very, very solid 8 out of 10. Fragrance number 4, this one here is Raving Rose. This is pepper and rose. And given how edgy and given how modern the previous one was, I'm guessing that this one here might lean a little bit more feminine. Who knows? Actually, all of them are very, very unisex. They're very particular. Interesting. Very different from the other one. It's still stereotypically rose, but it's much more juicy, much more fruity. This is actually reminding me a lot of Toy Boy by Moschino. Yeah, it's much more fruity, it's much more bright. The pepperness is not necessarily super easy to identify, but it's giving it a lot of fizziness. It's giving it a little bit of edginess. Yeah, this is actually quite similar to Toy Boy by Moschino, but it has, again, this incredibly saturated feel. The previous one was a combination of white and red. I just pictured this incredibly red rose mixing with paper. This one here is a lot more pink in color. This rose might be a little bit more pink in color, but it's also carrying something else, giving it a little bit more of this impression of juiciness, maybe a little bit more of an orange hue or like a peach hue. And I'm talking about colors because I tend to visualize fragrances in that manner. And these are so straight and vivid that color is the first thing that comes to my mind. Super pretty and actually not feminine at all. I feel like this is also very, very unisex. It's like a more dewy, more wet version of Toy Boy. It's less aggressive, less synthetic. Toy Boy was very, very brash. This is much more mellow. It's much more round. Wow, this is excellent stuff. It's so beautiful, so well made. Again, it presents itself so well and so clearly. I still think that I like the other one a little bit more. It had a little bit more character, had a little bit more edginess, but this is really, really nice. Yeah, I would have to give this another solid 7.5 out of 10. Let me tell you, these are all extremely good. It's getting more and more watery. I'm so addicted to smelling these. Gorgeous, gorgeous, and I'm so surprised. Wow, Dries Van Noten, highly recommended as a discovery set. They're very, very fun. Fragrance number 5 is Cannabis Patchouli, and the notes are cannabis and patchouli. So no surprises there. Let's give this a couple sprays. Patchouli, a lot of patchouli, which is musty. It's green, it's a little bit moldy. Yeah, I like patchouli, wow. Again, very vivid, very saturated. I'm picturing the color brown, deep green. Powerful stuff. Patchouli is a note that can't come across as very intense on its own. But in here, it's really next level. And again, this does not smell synthetic or abrasive whatsoever. It's powerful, but it's rich and smooth. But at the same time, it's a fairly simple scent, and I really can't shake that image that these are not necessarily too complex. I don't think that these would evolve or transition much. Even compared to something like Jovoy Psychedelique, this one here comes across as remarkably simple. And Psychedelique is not necessarily a complex scent by any stretch of the imagination. It's basically a representation of patchouli. But even that one there has a lot more detail, has a lot more depth, it has a lot more layers to it. This is very straightforward. It has everything spread out in one layer. All of these scents are like that. They don't have vertical depth. They're like very flat, but very, very interesting and very vivid at the same time. This is turning into a little bit more green. I think that the cannabis or something in there is giving it a lot of a push. It's giving it a lot of a balsamic, evaporative feeling. It might be the green aspects of the patchouli which are mixing with the cannabis, but it's really giving me this Vicks Vapor Rub sort of effect, which I actually really like. I like mint, I like balsamic feeling, I like camphorates in my fragrances. And this one here is going in that direction. The mustiness is kind of drying up and it's becoming more and more green, and it's pushing this earthy diffusion effect. It smells like a Smells like a damp, moldy piece of wood in the best way possible. It's super interesting. And again, it's fairly likable within its patchouli thing. It doesn't smell hippie whatsoever. Super cool. I actually really like this. It's not my favorite because I think that this one here so far is the most simple. And it's probably because of the patchouli, which is overpowering everything, or maybe the compatibility between the patchouli and the cannabis. They have a lot of overlap when it comes to scent profiles. But it's so punchy, so vivid, so saturated. Beautiful. Beautiful, powerful, fun to smell, easy to grasp, easy to understand. I would have to give this probably like a 7 out of 10. Again, it's really, really nice, but it's not as impressive as the other ones. Fragrance number 6 is Santal Greenery. This one here is characterized by fig and sandalwood. Let's give this a couple sprays. Another one which is insanely punchy, very, very saturated, very in your face. I'm so surprised. And fig and sandalwood, especially together, are two notes which don't have a lot of character. They're more used as like background notes. This is really, really intense. Beautiful. So easy to understand, so easy to grasp. I really can't stress this enough. This discovery set is a breath of fresh air. So enjoyable. Wow. For this alone, I have to recommend the discovery set just because it's so easy on the nose, so easy on the brain. Super fun, and I actually really like the scent profile. So just to describe it a little bit more, this is obviously fig and sandalwood in a very obvious way. Yeah, the sandalwood in here is very identifiable. It's clear as day. It's not as creamy as in the first fragrance. It's actually much more fibrous and woody. I think this one here on skin might be going into the pickle direction, which some sandalwoods can take. Very beautiful. The fig is incredibly photorealistic in this case. And it's more of the, I think it's the fig tree, it's the fig plant, and it's also a little bit of fruit in here. It's sweet in a very subtle, natural way. It's very much representative of the fruit. So beautiful. So appealing, almost in a vegetative way. It's almost dewy. It's not overdone whatsoever. And actually, none of these fragrances were too sweet, too cloying. They all smelled very, very natural, still keeping it very classy. This is gorgeous. And again, it's so easy to picture the fig and the sandalwood, or maybe like the fig tree. I really can't stress enough how easy to interpret these are and how fun they are to sample. This could be a little bit of a double-edged sword because these fragrances might give off a very, very good first impression, but they could be a little bit more boring, maybe in the dry down, especially day after day. This is really cool stuff though. I really can't know. These are all prompting me for a skin wear. I'm really, really curious of how these develop on skin. I'll be writing an update in the comment down below. Super beautiful. I really, really like this. It's incredibly well done. I really don't have much to say about this. I would give this a solid 7.5 out of 10. It's not super creative, but it's just so insanely well done, so vivid and saturated as an image. Fragrance number 7, this one here is Voodoo Chile. This is a rosemary and patchouli. Very, very curious. This was actually one of the ones that sparked my interest the most. Let's give this a couple sprays. Voodoo Chile. This is one of those names which is probably the furthest from what I can imagine. Wow, I'm really picking it up in the air. Once again, pretty punchy. I'm so impressed by the ingredients. I'm really liking how they use them. And despite having similar ingredients, like the two roses from before, one was incredibly juicy, the other one was very brittle and paper-like. And the patchouli in here smells nothing like the one from before, nothing from the Cannabis Patchouli one. That one there was very much musty and moldy. This is earthy and chocolatey. So strange. I like this. This is probably one of my favorites off the bat. Very, very interesting. The rosemary in here is front and center. Let me tell you, it's very, very vivid. And it's giving the scent this distinct savoriness, which is kind of difficult to describe actually. Think of it as oily and salty, almost to a crystallized level. It has a distinct texture to it. It's like sandy. It feels gritty. It feels almost like sandpaper. It feels earthy. But earthy and again, more sandy, more dry. So interesting. So interesting, and once again, so clear in its intent, in its image. These are not undecisive whatsoever. I hate undecisive scents, which are trying to please everyone. These are not those, fear not. And that's very, very common actually within the designer realm. Designers usually tend to put out stuff with the mentality of trying to appease the broadest audience possible. These things here are extremely directional. I really like this. The patchouli in here is not in your face. I mean, it's very detectable. It's obviously patchouli, but it has this earthy graininess to it. It's becoming more and more dry as the scent is progressing. And again, there's not a massive transition. It's still the same thing, but it's becoming more sandy and rough. This is actually kind of masculine. It's a little bit aromatic. Actually, it's not even masculine. This is very, very unisex, but it has a little bit of edginess. It has sharpness. I like this. This is probably one of the better ones. It's very creative, very innovative. I really like the combination of flavors. Again, the first one that really caught me off guard was the mint iris one. Brilliant scent, absolutely amazing. Then that rose vetiver was incredible, my favorite, but this is probably up there. I would have to give this a very, very solid 8. This is great, great stuff. Man, I really feel like I want to purchase all of these now, especially because the bottles look so damn good. But yeah, no chance. These are absolutely insanely expensive. Wow, so impressed. Very, very good. 8 out of 10. Fragrance number 8 is Rock the Myrrh featuring myrrh and smoked wood. This sounds totally like my thing. I might be super into this if this maintains the same vivid, straightforward imagery. Let's give this a go. Fingers crossed. Super excited. I like resinous myrrh. I like smoked woods. Wow, super, super cool. Again, potent, powerful, vivid, saturated. I'm thinking of the color, some sort of a beige, golden brown, something like that. This is really, really nice. It has the typical resinous balsamicness of myrrh, which is incredibly apparent. And it smells woody, but not in a fibrous way whatsoever. I was expecting a little bit more grain, but the myrrh is really taking over the scent. It's just blanketing everything with this gummy texture. It feels very rubbery, not rubbery in smell, just rubbery in like softness. So vivid, so yellow and golden. This is almost smelling kind of boozy. The smoked woods in here have this definite sweetness, which is almost coming across as fermented. I'm almost getting the idea of some sort of a liquor barrel or something like that. It's so smooth and beautiful. It's really tickling my brain, really giving me that satisfaction of sweetness. It's not a sweet scent in a natural way. It's not gourmand. It's not amber whatsoever. It feels very appropriate. It's very adult in its presentation. It's really, really well done. Just well done. Wow. So impressed. This is easily the most likable out of the bunch. It's the one that kind of triggers me to say that it's my favorite, but it is a little bit simple. I mean, I've smelled other stuff kind of like this because it does have that woody, boozy, sort of fermented thing. And it has a little bit of resinous sweetness on top. Yeah, it's not too unheard of image-wise. I mean, it's fairly common, but this one here is extremely well presented. Again, the opening is so well done, so extremely well done. Smooth, beautiful, rich, vivid, and saturated. It's getting better and better by the minute. Gorgeous. Yeah, I can't help it. I would have to give this a solid 8 and put it right up there with the other two that I like. This is really, really beautiful. Predictable, maybe, but it is gorgeous. I was expecting something a little bit more wood forward. This is more boozy, resinous, but it is super beautiful. There's no definite spice in here. There's nothing overdone like cinnamon. It doesn't smell like angel share whatsoever. This actually smells a lot more adult. So beautiful, so well done, so vivid. Once again, I am repeating myself. I fully understand that. This is very, very strong, 8 out of 10. Fragrance number 9, and unfortunately the second to last. I've been enjoying this set throughoutly. This one here is Fleur du Mal, and it features notes of osmanthus and suede. This sounds absolutely amazing on paper. Let's hope that it lives up to the other ones. Beautiful. Wow. Off the bat, amazing. Once again, incredibly vivid, incredibly saturated. So colorful, so direct in its imagery. And I'm not using the word photorealistic because these are not necessarily photorealistic. They're not cartoonish either. They're just, it's like a photograph with the saturation just cranked up. They're so easy to understand. They're so easy to decipher. Yeah, this is absolutely unmistakable. It's clearly osmanthus and some sort of a supple, soft leather. It's so beautiful, so delicate, so powdery, so refined. The osmanthus in here is clear as day. It's very, again, it's very apricot. It's very peach-like. It's your typical osmanthus, which is stereotyped. Fruity in the most delicate way possible, not overdone and not overly sweet. So tasteful. The leather is not that obvious, but it's giving the scent a lot of suppleness. It's giving it a lot of texture. I feel that it's more a texture thing rather than an actual smell thing. Maybe as the scent dries down, the osmanthus will be toning down as before with the patchouli cannabis, and the leather component will be emerging. And the leather in here comes across as a little bit dry and dusty. I think it's riding that powdery aspect of the osmanthus. Again, it's dry, but it's supple. Supple is the word for this scent. Gorgeous, wow. This is gorgeous, and it's actually reminding me kind of what is that one? Cour de Chine by Les Indemodables. Obviously, Les Indemodables has a lot more detail, has a lot more richness, it has a lot more nuances. But this one here, I think that A to B would be a strong winner, especially in a first impression comparison, because these are all very, very exciting. Cour de Chine, again, I'm fully trusting that it has much higher quality components and that eventually it will win you over with its nuances. Elegant, supple, tasteful. I really can't say enough good things. This one is also one of my favorites. It's so beautiful. It's really prompting me to put it on skin, and I will put all of these on skin because there has to be something to it. There has to be some sort of a catch because they're so good in the opening that there has to be something which is kind of lacking in the dry down. Maybe they're overly simple. There has to be something about these which is just failing because there's no way that they're this good and no one is talking about them. I'm full fanboy mode. 8 out of 10 for whatever this one was called, Fleur du Mal. Beautiful. Last but not least, we have fragrance number 10. This one here is Soie Malaquais with chestnut and silk. Very, very interesting combination. Silk is not even an unusual note. I feel that this will either be the best one or the worst one, just because these two notes are kind of unusual and they're difficult to depict. Wow. Once again, a very, very rich, very dense, very full-bodied. The notes in here are not super obvious, probably due to the nature of them, but it's giving me a very specific image. I'm getting tea, like tea with milk. It smells a little bit like a different type of tea. It's definitely more spicy. I'm also getting this slightly aniseic quality, kind of like licorice. A little bit woody. Beautiful, wow. It's creamy, it's very subtle. This is actually, I mean, it's potent and dense, but it's subtle as far as like imagery goes. It's not aggressive whatsoever. It's incredibly smooth and rounded over. I like this a lot, actually, a lot. I think that this creamy tea with this milk in it is given by the nuttiness of the chestnut, I'm guessing. So I might be reading a little bit too much through the lines. I might be forcing this silk texture, but I am thinking about milk being poured into tea. And when you do that, the milk doesn't necessarily immediately mix with the tea. It creates this veil feeling, this veil image. And I'm kind of getting that. Yeah, I'm getting the image of milk being poured into this jug of tea. It's really, really nice. It's smooth and edgy at the same time because that licorice note is really giving it a lot of it's giving it a lot of top notes. This is easily the most complex one out of the bunch. It's not super straightforward. It doesn't feel like two notes put together. It feels more. It feels like there's tea. It feels like there's milk. It feels like there's licorice. It feels like there's a little bit of woodiness in there. It's really, really pretty. It does feel a little bit more feminine to a degree, although it has that licorice note, which is kind of edgy, but it feels very, very creamy. Maybe it's the nuttiness, which I'm not a huge fan of, but it is very, very beautiful. I do like this scent a lot. Is it the best? Probably not, but it's definitely the most complex. I have to give this probably a very, very good 7.5 out of 10, maybe even an 8, just because it replicates this tea idea so extremely well. This spiced tea. It almost smells like there's a specific type of tea which is called carcade, which I think it's hibiscus. And it smells kind of like that. It has a little bit more of a fruity sharpness to it. Again, it smells spiced. Beautiful. Wow. Once again, full-bodied, very, very vivid, very saturated, very direct. Once again, none of these fragrances are really exhibiting massive complexity, especially on the vertical axis. I feel that they're all lacking layers. To be completely honest, they feel more like a 2D painting or illustration, but I'm not going to bash it in this case specifically because I feel that this way of presenting the scent really adds visualization capability. These all open up extremely vividly. They're so easy to understand. They're so clear. They might be lacking a little bit of complexity in the dry down. They might fall short in that regard, but they open up exceptionally well. Very, very exciting, while still being classy and very rounded off, incredibly smooth. And this one here is absolutely beautiful. I'm a little bit of a sucker for licorice, so I'm tempted to give this a higher score than it deserves. I'm being tempted to give this an 8 out of 10 just because of that licorice note. But in reality, this smells a little bit more like a 7.5 out of 10. Again, it's extremely good. And I'll be definitely putting it on skin as per the other ones. These are all very, very enticing, very exciting, but also at the same time, classy, refined. They're super, super sophisticated. I like this a lot. I like this brand a lot. Okay, I'm done with the initial sampling and I'm really puzzled on which fragrance to put on skin because they're all extremely good and they're all calling me in their own right. I think that at this point, I might choose a fragrance which is a little bit more revealing, maybe revealing of how these wear on skin. I'm thinking to choose maybe Rosa Carnivora, which is the Rose Vetiver one, which came across as very top heavy and very brittle. And I would be choosing that just because I'm scared that on skin, the very brittle, delicate nature of that scent might be ruined by some sort of a base note, which emerges when worn on skin and just covers everything, just ruining the whole delicate presentation. If that works on my skin, probably all of the other ones will work on my skin. So that one there I feel is a good example. I might also try later down the road one of the richer ones just to see if it also gets polluted by my skin or something that emerges on my skin. But yeah, I'm very excited and I'm almost fearful because again, these are so good that I don't want them to be bad on skin. I don't want them to be bad in the dry down. So Rosa Carnivora it is. Let me give it 3 sprays. And in the meantime, once again, I am very, very impressed by this set. This has been easily one of the best sampling experiences lately. It's been so fun, so refreshing, so different. And yeah, I just can't recommend it enough. This is one of those brands which is a strong recommendation sample-wise. I'm not necessarily sure how expensive this is, but if it even hovers around $100, this is so worth it. It's worth it. The samples are not the greatest when it comes to the atomizers, but none of them have failed me, so I guess there's that. Maybe it's a new set and they haven't clogged up. But yeah, let's open the floodgates to gushing and fanboyism. I really can't stress enough how impressed I am by these. They smell absolutely amazing, all of them. They're all very, very different one from another, not redundant whatsoever. And I feel that none of these lack decisiveness. They're all very clear in their imagery. So clear, so vivid, so saturated. They all feel like a bucket of paint, like representing a specific color on the color wheel, on the color palette. Really, really amazing. Absolutely highly recommended. So exciting. I'm so happy to have this. Let me hold my horses and let's see what Rosa Carnivora does on my skin, because this whole thing might crumble like a house of cards if this one here is bad. I'm thinking, I'm processing. So the scent has a lot more body. It's developing in the base, but there's nothing which is foreign to the scent itself. It feels like the rose is extending in the base. It's really taking over a lot more space. In the vetiver, that bitterness, that ashy dryness is a lot less clear. It feels less like paper, it feels less brittle, but it still has this grainy organic texture. It feels very, very nice. The smell is actually fairly similar. It's maybe because it maybe has to do with the media which I was smelling it from. Again, it was paper, so maybe a little bit of that was transferring into the scent, but in a weird way, the other ones weren't doing that. But yes, I can't deny that the fragrance is definitely warming up on my skin. It's losing a little bit of that Northern European feel. It's losing a little bit of that minimalism, but that is not necessarily to anyone's surprise because my skin does that to scents. It really kills any acidity, it kills any zing, it kills metallic notes, and it adds this bass, it adds this rumble. Yep, there's still a very obvious rose. There's a little bit of that something that is trying to break it up to make the rose itself a little bit more palatable. I still prefer it on paper rather than on skin just because it came across as more characterful and modern. But on skin, it is still very, very beautiful. And I would definitely pull it off, no problem whatsoever. Also, on skin, it still smells kind of simple. I'm not necessarily gonna complain because the opening is so freaking good. These scents are so beautiful that I will forgive a little bit of simplicity in the overall scent construction. Gorgeous stuff. Once again, super, super fun. I'm not fatigued at all. These were 10 fragrances, one better than the other. I have a strong difficulty to choose which is a favorite of mine, and that is kind of surprising actually. I was not expecting this whatsoever from a designer brand, especially a designer brand that I've never heard of. Excellent, excellent discovery set. I was not expecting this whatsoever. Who would have known that a Belgian designer brand would put out such an amazing product? If you get the discovery set, leave me a comment down below. I hope you'll like it as much as I did. If you like this type of content, if you like my approach to video, feel free to subscribe. It's always massively appreciated and it helps the channel. If you want to interact with me, leave a comment, suggestion, opinion, or anything else down below. I always reply and I always keep the conversation open. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for your time. It's never taken for granted. Many more first impressions, many more reviews, many more speed dating episodes to come. I am very excited. See you in the next one and cheers.